It's wonderful to be here and see all these great friends. Some friends here I've known for many, many years, and I also made a new friend, Milo, back there today. I think my newest friend in the room right there. Everyone see him? I think 6 months old, and very precious little one there. But it's really wonderful being with you, and yeah. I don't even know what to say. I was up on Lafayette yesterday. My water bottle's still mostly frozen. So it's kind of nice to drink, and I still got an iceberg in the middle. It's, yeah, it was beautiful up there. And we had this experience where the sun was starting to set, and we were still up at the top, like at the lodge, a little off the top, and it was just red. And it was like piercing through the forest and illuminating the snow in this salmon, milky red glow, and it looked like the snow was emanating the light, and it was scattering it in the trees. So, you know, the trees were doused in snow up high, you know, and it was just doused with this light. And I was there with like 7 guys, all like my age or older, you know, like in their 60s, and some guys close to 70, and like me, the young squirt at 55. And we were all just in rapture, you know. And then we were honoring Guy Waterman's day when he chose to leave the Earth Walk up there. And so we turned and looked up at the mountain and gave him a big, beautiful hello. And we just went silent for about 2 minutes there all together, and came down off the mountain in the dark. It was quite a beautiful day. But one of the reasons this area just it was hard to leave and it's beautiful coming back is there's just so many people who've been at this for so long, like doing this sustainability work. And I see people who've been involved with the Sustainability Institute, the Co-Housing Project in Ella Meadows. I see people there from D Acres who are, like, I used to be on the board there, and I really miss not being around there because they do so much amazing work. And every time I go back there, like when I was on the board, every time they tell me what they're going to do, I felt like I should say to them, no, that's too much. And somehow I just would like bite my tongue and not say that. And then you come back like to the next quarterly board meeting, and they'd done like almost everything they said they were going to do. So it's like, I'm glad I shut my mouth. And then Barbara back there with the Vermont Earth Institute, now Catamount Institute, just people who've been at this. I remember the first time I was going to do a speaking gig, she thought I was too radical. And I still remember it. She gave me like 3 hugs when I came in, but it was great. We had this great dialogue that formed, you know, and people from the co-op and in town here, just such a beautiful thing. People work on the Appalachian Trail, some architects who do things beyond belief, projects, world-renowned architect, redesigning the mall, and helped me design my new house in Maine. So anyway, it's just like beautiful to be here among all of you, and friends and people who are amazing. Often. Susan gave me your book for a birthday present.
Oh, nice.
One of her earlier novels. Beautiful novel. So anyway, there's a lot of wisdom in action in this room. And I just want to ask, how many people here, say in the past year, have made some pretty significant changes just thinking like it's time? Raise your hand if you just think like, I thought about this for years and it's time. Like, and who made changes like for the Mother Earth, like for the Earth itself, just like it's time. I've been thinking about this and I'm going to do this, you know. And you know, how about who's made some changes just like I got to like somehow get hold of this crazy mind of mine that's like out of control, you know, and I really need to work on it, you know. Who read Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth? You know, and his subtitle was "In Finding Your Path in Life," you know, or something. So I read it, so hungry to like see maybe I'm having like a third midlife crisis. So I thought, oh, I got to read it. You know, it's like 2 or 3 years ago, and I kept waiting for all this wisdom of how to make a new life, you know, or find your purpose. And in the last chapter, he's finally going to deal with it, and he spends 3/4 of the last chapter still trying to convince you of the first thing he tried to talk to you about was calming yourself and calming your mind and feeling a lightness inside and cultivating no fear, no ego, and just like feel relaxed and come to a meeting where ego is not coming into the room. Like, and he's saying, even in this last chapter, if you are going to try to change the planet and change what's happening, and you're coming with that other mind, he says, go back and do some more work. And I found it frustrating, but I found he was probably right on about my own dysfunction. That's hard to work on, but it's powerful to work on. So anyway, I'm empowered to see that people here recognize those things and work on it. And I think that when you get around a group of people who are working on it, things start to change in a different way. And I like to say I was in the basement with Simon and Kai from the co-op, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. Karen was there talking about transition. Like before we left here, we were in the basement of the co-op talking about the transition town thing. Yeah. So, I would like to just ask for like a minute. I want to do a game I call television. So where you get to tell each other a vision. And the way it works is it's a spoof on our television, so we get the televisions. But what I'm thinking is, what does it mean to you to be a planetary citizen? What does it really mean in your heart of hearts to live on the Earth as a planetary citizen? And so what I'm going to ask you is you just pair up. So just like you two, you two, you two. If you come where you are not, maybe turn around and see if you can find a partner. And everyone find a partner. And I'm going to ask you I'll time it. So you have 1 minute. And one of you has to choose to be the visionary. And the other one has to choose to be the active listener. The job of the active listener is to put a facial expression on your face like you can't wait to hear more. But try not to say anything. If you have to say something, pretend you're a Canadian and you can say, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and just keep them talking. And then, but when 1 minute's up, I'll say, okay, switch roles. And so now the active listener becomes the visionary. And just tell some visions about what you feel it means. What does it mean to you to be a planetary citizen? Live on the Earth as a planetary citizen. So I'm just going to say, everyone has a partner? Anybody not have a partner? Oh, one person without a partner? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, great. Okay, on your mark, get set, television.
All right, now you're on your
Okay, so it's time now to change roles. Time to exchange roles. Active listeners become visionaries.
Right.
get out of my own way. In my own way.
Okay, time to wrap up your conversations. Okay, now it's time to test the active listeners. Okay, so I'm just going to ask this for a few comments from people, and just like a snapshot, like 1 or 2 words of what you heard. And if you don't know the person's name that you were talking to, just give their name now. So the way it's nice is if you say, oh, my friend Hawk or my friend Patricia said this, or just so you say their name as you say like the word or two about what it meant to them to be a planetary citizen. So who wants to start? Just a word or two of what they heard. Yeah?
Debbie talked about treading lightly and trying to make an effort to do no harm.
And Phil talked about really focusing locally.
Patricia talked about continuing her writing and her local educational activism role.
Kirsten spoke about starting gardening, and it really spoke to her, and she wanted to do it on a small scale, not really an activist scale, but who knows how many people would view her and follow suit.
Nice.
Barbara talked about living in the significance of soil microbiological life.
And Edward talked about finding the space and the energy to, that you were referring to be able to cultivate all of these ideas and manifest them out outwardly.
Chris talked about spiritual aspects, and I hope I get it right, that this body is sort of the way of connecting our spirits to the earth, and we should realize that.
Sandy talked about finding peace in staying home more and doing simple things.
Sharon talked about the house and reducing impacts by, solar and telehealth.
Carol shared how there may be examples around the planet already of other cultures and countries that are living really more in harmony with the earth. And ironic that some of them look at the U.S. lifestyle as desirable, where if you look at more in a planetary way, it's possibly the reverse.
Reverse, yeah.
Laura talked about being an educator and doing her part, and she thought waste vegetable oil vehicles was a good way to go.
Dee Dee is inspired by the wisdom of the animal kingdom and how their life is in balance and has an integrity and a wisdom that can teach us things.
Nice. Wow. That's a lot of richness.
Yeah, David was reflecting on the whole concept of having zero footprint when it's time for him to leave.
Oh, wow. You all have done my whole talk. I'll see you later. That's great. No, I think it's powerful to feel the wisdom in the room, and a lot of what you said has moved me over the years, and I'd say I still have a burning question, and it hasn't left me for, I'd say, close to 30 years, and it's like, how can I, as one of 7 billion people, one of like 25 million species, live here in a way that's beautiful and fair and feels like beautiful inside, like just feels like a deer or like a coyote or like just like I'm harmonizing with the world that is. And how can I do that? How can I manifest it in a way that's meaningful and not just like a oh, I'm sustainable, but it really is just like I want it to be authentic and real somehow. So that's been burning inside of me. And somehow when I was 16 or 17, I actually had the conscious thought that I would like gladly give my life if all other humans did at the same time, just so the earth could return to a harmonious way. I felt at 16 or 17, I would do it if all other humans said, right now, let's pull the plug on humanity. Just because I saw what we were doing was not really beautiful. I grew up on Long Island, and I would just see the horrendous things that we were doing, to the planet, and it pained me. In some way, I thought that in my life, I might have to learn to live in the forest someday just to get away from the insanity of it. And so I did learn to hunt. Like, I got a hunting license at 17, and I didn't really like go at it from a fear way, more just like be prepared, and not be dumb and caught, But that was like a very childish, immature, like my response in a way. But I feel like, I went and got this job as an electrical engineer, and got a top secret security clearance, and I'm designing like top secret military hardware, like a BlackBerry in the 80s. It was a little handheld computer that could work underwater, could work on a deck of a battleship. You could kick it and it would transmit top secrets. And I was like the lead engineer with like 24 people working for me, and like this kid who dreamed of helping the earth went the other way. By 27, I'm like in the middle of like flying first class to sell this thing that I was the lead engineer for to foreign militaries, and I'm meeting with arms dealers in like 8 or 10 countries, and it started feeling really sour at some point, and I'm on the Champs-Élysées, and there's this like guy who's a consulate for Iraq at the time for the US, and he's clicking his fingers to his Moroccan servants who he treated like slaves, and he immediately in the door, he's telling me he's got like not only this big flat with Egyptian statues on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, he's also got like 4 real estate things on the Riviera. He's just bragging, and then I'm supposed to teach him how to use the device that I designed so he could sell it to other countries, and he tells me he has customers in Iraq and Iran that he can sell to both sides of the conflict. I went back to the place, and I just had such a sour feeling because we talked politics all night, and he just had this idea that the rest of the world was too stupid, and the U.S. had to have a dominant foreign policy to basically be one world superpower so we could control the entire world, essentially, But that vision, I've watched it come to be. We are now the one world superpower. I was in the room with Dick Cheney in '86 at a fair with like 5,000 arms dealers all in one big room in Belgium, and he's giving a keynote speech, and he says, "Don't worry, you're going to be there's going to be enemies forever. If the Russian, the Soviet Union falls apart." It was called low intensity conflict. So they had 50 covert operations going on at the time that were meant to like disrupt governments, so they would become more hostile. We'd arm whatever side was favorable to U.S. business interests, get them fighting. We would hold the financing. I was trained in foreign military sales, so I learned how to sell like fighter planes and jets, but I was selling a cryptographic computer, but I learned all the procedures, and there was no penalty if they didn't repay. And it came out of the budget line item called, we'd hold the financing for the sales of a lot of these weapons to foreign militaries. If they didn't repay, there was no penalty. So it's basically like saying, you don't have to pay us. So where does it come out of? It came out of foreign aid, what we call it. A budget that I always thought was like to help countries. So I was like a young right-wing kid who had this like amazing wake-up call. Like, I didn't know this. Like, I thought like the missiles for peace. I kind of was that stupid. And my dad was ultra right wing, I grew up in a family like that, and I had this huge shift, and it started happening, and then I started going to meetings about people coming back from being with the Sandinistas from Central America, telling me all those stories of the torture manuals that we were distributing, all this, the School of the Americas. I started learning all that while I was still in, like going to meet with these militaries, and at one point I just had the biggest ethical crisis you could imagine, and I realized I could not even live with myself anymore if I had to go into work anymore. And I didn't know what to do, so I realized I had to quit, but I was afraid, you know, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to live? And so I did. I locked myself in my house for the weekend with my engineering economics textbooks, and I said, what do I need? And I realized, like, okay, if I had a 4-bedroom house at the time, if I rented 3 out of the 4 rooms, if I took my car off the road, if I planted a vegetable garden, I said I could live on $5,000 a year. And I ran the numbers backwards and forwards and says, I can do this. And I felt so confident because I was doing like multi-million-dollar business deals for my company, and I knew how to run the numbers, and I said, I can do it. So I went in and I quit. I gave notice, and that was 24 years ago. And I more or less have lived on that same amount. Like, I did have 2 years at Dartmouth College. They paid me a gross amount of money. But that added to my coffers a little. But more or less, I'm still, if I never had that, I would still be fine to live off of that. So I haven't touched the capital really in all those years. I more or less lived off that interest, which averages out to like $5,000 a year, more or less. You know, and it was just like an experiment. And it was a fun experiment, and it's still kind of going on in its own way. You know, I have a partner and a little boy, and we're, you know, I can't control them, but I do what I want to. I do things the best I can in keeping harmony in the family, you know. And it's a fun dance. But it was an experiment, and for me, a lot of this, like, over the years, and still, like, I've had only medical insurance for 2 years out of 25 years. You know, the 2 years at Dartmouth. I still have no medical insurance. And I have not really I can't think of one time I said, oh, what am I going to do when I get old? I just haven't thought of that, and it doesn't faze me, and I don't think of things like that. I just don't worry about it. Just try to eat good food, try to get control of my crazy monkey mind and get rid of my anxiety, calm down, eat healthy food, exercise. That's what I do. Like, and also, like, ready to go. You know, like, if I got to go, I'm ready to go. Just like my mom went this year, like 5 months ago. She got a diagnosis, and she said, we were all there in the house with her. She said, I'm ready. You know, I don't need to fight. I'm 84, had a great life. She called everyone up, and all her friends at night, family, we were all her sibs were there. And she said, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to drink. And she just went in the bedroom. We'd come in there, and she'd say, go eat dinner. You know, she didn't want us talking and stroking her and all that. And she just closed her eyes. She didn't talk anymore. And in 2 days, she passed, you know. And she passed with a powerful feeling, like no fear. And I was so happy I got to watch her. She gave me the courage, you know. You never know what you're going to do. But it's worth practicing. Because when you practice, you find, like, the more you practice things, they call it alienation or something, your brain finds the ways to, like, keep it going. So when you practice the idea, okay, if I gotta go, I gotta go. I'm not that important, you know. It'll be fun and exciting wherever I'm going, you know. That could be cool. You know, I'm not worried. You know, I'm not gonna, like, say. I've heard people say, I have this job, so I have benefits. Do you like it? No. But I gotta keep it because I have benefits. Like, what's the benefit? Of working one day in a job you don't like, there's no benefit. Like, one day. You know, oh, I'm doing this so my kids, they can go to college. So you can tell your kids, oh, I worked at a horrible job, and I sacrificed my creativity and my love and my passion so I could put you through school. Look at you. You don't even do anything. And I gave up my life for you. Like, what kind of trip are we trying to put on our kids? Live a life that's exciting, meaningful, of purpose, helpful to the planet, and they're going to see that, and they don't need anything else. They don't need money. They'll figure it out. I don't know. I had a dad who's a truck driver with 9 kids, so none of us got paid for nothing. You know, we bought our own shoes. I kind of grew up in a funny environment. But some of it I'm glad for. So anyway, you know, part of what I felt over the years, like, there was a time when I would tell my friends all the problems of the planet, like, all the time. And you go into town, you see your friends, and they'd, like, duck down the alleys. Have to get into the speech from you, you know. So, and I go home to see my family, and, like, oh, I can't believe you're doing it. You know, I just give them so much grief, and then they hated seeing me, you know. And then I hated myself when I would do it, you know. I didn't like it. And slowly you realize, like, the ones closest to you go, just, like, let go, 100%, you know, and everyone around, like, you have to let go, because what are you gonna do? You can't change anyone. You can change yourself, and if you're riding your bike and you're like cussing at the cars, like what are you accomplishing? God, I wish those people get out of their cars. God, look at all those cars. Now they're in SUVs. Now they're in Hummers. And, you know, you're not accomplishing anything. Anyone's going to see you and say, look at that poor miserable person frowning and they're riding their bicycle. I was in Holland and it was pouring rain and a woman's on the bike with a big basket and a 3-speed and the tires are almost out of air and they're riding the cobblestones and she's smiling and it's pouring rain. You know, it's like, oh, that's how you ride your bike, you know. Like, I try to learn those things, and, you know, if you try to be a hero, like, look at me, I'm doing everything right. Everyone's going to knock you off. Like, no one likes someone who's so full of their... Because we're all working at progress, right? No matter who you are, you're a work in progress, and then you're trying to be the martyr. That doesn't work. There's a lot of this stuff just doesn't work, you know, or fear, like, oh my God, if we don't do this fast enough, there's not enough people. Why isn't there more people? Why isn't there more time? Why isn't there more this? Like, all that is eroding your power to be fearful about what's happening. Like the collapse word, it's good, it's there. But if we're fearing, like, you know, sometimes people want to get together and talk like, Y2K is coming. Like, where I was living in British Columbia, they say we should better buy dental pliers because we're not going to have a dentist after, like, the midnight. They bought $4,000 worth of seeds because they were convinced they're not going to have seeds after midnight. I was an electrical engineer, so this is very interesting to me. I watched all these congressional hearings they were having at the time. These top-notch people, consultants hired, saying all these things. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, computers don't work that way. You know? So anyway, I was in a little cabin in the mountains of British Columbia, and I had a fire going outside in the snow on midnight of Y2K, and I had one light on in my little cabin over there, just to see. And I did buy like an extra a box of matches, just in case Y2K. And my friend said, oh, we're buying 6 bicycle tires, because we have extras, because we won't get them. But they would come by in the snowmobile, because we were 2 miles up the hill and snowed in for 9 months. I was living with a bunch of communitarians up in the mountains of British Columbia. They all said together, we're buying all this stuff, we're going to bike even if it doesn't happen, is what they told me. It didn't happen, and they weren't riding their bikes. But now what I got from you is like, it's changing now. Like you told me, a lot of you, like almost everyone's hand went up. You've made changes. Who wants to do more this next year? Really? Like, I'm serious. Like, more. We got to do more. We all know it. So it's a beautiful time to be alive. We're doing more like that. And I think if we cultivate that inner feeling of joy and helpfulness, it's not for me. It's for me and it's for us, you know. And we're going to help each other. Like when people say, oh, if you have a big root cellar, they're all going to come after your root cellar. Just get her life, man. They're all going to have guns, you know. Those people will really come after her. You know, like, relax, you know. People are so beautiful. You know, every time there's a big disaster, what you hear, like, everyone comes together afterwards. Like, people are beautiful. Like, doesn't matter what politics you are. My dad was crazy. He was a truck driver, arch Republican, 2 in the morning. If you're stuck on the road, he's going to stop and pick you up. You know, I've been stuck on the road, like on my bike, flat tire, in the middle of nowhere, and I ran out of patches, and I need a ride. And there's a car with like, "Love your mother," like, whatever, bumper stickers, and I'm like, oh great, finally. Hi. And she looks at me, and she's like, window goes up, and straight by, you know. So it's like, I don't like to categorize people because, you know, a lot of people, I don't care their politics, they're good people, you know, and the family helps you know that, because you know your family and they're beautiful, and that we're all struggling and doing what best we can. So I want to show some slides, and maybe it's time, and would you mind getting the lights for me? But I want to talk about like this idea of radical freedom, and you know, 24 or 5 years without having to actually work for a job, but just having enough you know, if I keep my simple life, I don't need to work even for the rest of my life for money. But so it's meant a lot of freedom, but you know, after that 24 or 5 years of it, it's in a way I still feel it's hard, you know, because it's in a way harder than the need for money is gone. So you have to. I find that it's harder to decide what to do because I don't have to go in and do it. So if someone else would do a job, I necessarily don't feel like I need to go do that job. I want to do something that no one would ever get paid for. So that's the type of work I more or less tend toward. But as we get into resilience and sustainability, we see like trends aren't pretty, and like the dangerous thing that we can do is not do anything. And when you understand humans' capacity to transform, it's just mind-boggling how we can transform. And we can be really ugly and we can be beautiful. It's just like what's happening today. And for me in a way, like this graph kind of helps me. It says like, it's almost a very simple, Vicki Robin, who wrote this book, Your Money or Your Life. I used to hang out with them, with the folks who wrote this book a lot when I lived out west. And Vicki sketched this on a piece of paper for me one day. You know, there's things we we want and we have them. So like, wow, gratitude. Like, I wanted a roof over my head and I have one. I always want a partner and I actually have one. Wow, thank you. Come home and look at them in the eye and say thank you. It's so wonderful. I'm so grateful to be with you. You wanted food and you have food. And you wanted to make sure you were warm and you are warm. Wow, thank you, I'm warm. Like, to not get in a place where we are forgetting the gratitude. And then there's things that we want but we don't have them. Like, those are needs and we all have them, and it's not worth like beating ourselves up. We just have to, you know, if there are needs, we do it. But then there's things we have them and we don't want them. And they're cluttering our life and they're sapping our energy, and we're too busy occupying ourselves with things anyway often. And so like when I did move in, rent 3 of the 4 rooms in my house, I had 13 yard sales. 13. And I was still getting rid of stuff. I lived like 2 years off of my excess junk that I didn't need. And then to me, this is the last category, things that you don't have them and you don't want them. Like, that's where the freedom is really extensive in life, because like you could go over someone's house and it could be the most beautiful house. And you know, you go out on the deck and it's got a view. All the mountains of Vermont. They have a hot tub out on the deck, and wow, that'd be so nice to just be in that hot tub and look out at that view. But you go home to your little cabin in the forest and you say, I'm just so happy to be home in my little habitation, you know, and you smile and you feel a warmth and coziness in yours wherever you are, you know. So you didn't want that. You just saved yourself like 30 years of working. Somebody's got a brand new car, you see it and it gets so many miles per gallon that you know you have to have it because it's just like the newest thing. You say, well, it's $30,000. So if your real hourly wage, like this book asks you to calculate how much of your life do you trade to get like $1. You have to trade your life to get your money. So you may have to trade like 3 or 4 or 5 years, maybe 10 years just to get a fancy new car. Is it worth it to you to trade that? Or may there be a different way of using your life energy? So it's a good focus. And there's a culture jam, like a way to jam culture and like a rewire ourselves, but it's also a culture jam because culture doesn't know how to deal with us if we don't buy it. If we don't buy their lies, we don't buy their stuff, if we don't buy the corporate junk that they're selling us, like endless, like they'll figure out how to get us to buy every little device and everyone is going to buy the device. And they know exactly how to do it. It's a formulaic. And if we just become immune to their formulas, we get strong. And I think this like owning that we care, like that is so powerful. Like we have such a capacity to care for each other. And like even as a guy, you're meant to believe that like it's a competitive thing. All the kids are learning to compete and you got to get grades and then you got to get in the better university. It's all competition. And so it works out of us this idea that we care for each other. Like whenever I hear Obama say, we got to look after U.S. interests, I just feel such a pain inside. Like, I want a country that looks after others' interests. You know, like in Native American time, if you were supposedly a leader and you talk for your own interests, the women took you and put you aside. And they say, you got to go and grow up. You come back when you want to talk for the voiceless. You talk for the unborn. You talk for, that's all you're going to talk for. If you're going to be an elder in this planet, you know, in their society, you can't talk for your needs of yourself or your own family, or you're out. And, you know, in our world today, planetary citizen in my book means I'm only caring about the world hungry now, and the poor, and the species who are going extinct. Like, that's how I feel. And then most of us, I think, have those values. So, like, aligning with our values, the more we align, the beautiful, like, there's not that cognitive dissonance. Like, you want your stocks to grow, but if they grow in value, you're hurting the earth more. So you hear every day on the radio, oh, the market's up a little, and you think, oh, I'll have a little more for retirement. Then the next day it's down a little, you say, oh no, I'm losing a little of my retirement. But the companies, if you look at it, it's awful, and you don't agree with it. So the more we can detangle ourselves, so we don't have a wish for this and a wish for that, like a private wish and like a wish for the good for the big, you know, what is it, like big me and the little me? You know, so I think it's like, and calming the mind is powerful, because I think if the mind isn't calm, we can't operate. Like when my little 4-year-old is doing something I really don't like. The best wisdom I'm getting from watching and hearing is like, first I don't say a word, and become peaceful if I really don't like what he's doing. And then I try the best I can to enter his world, you know? Calmly enter his world. Whoa, what are you doing here? And then if I need to try to redirect him, I have to stay in his world for long enough and play with him a little before I could redirect it a little bit if I need to. But if I don't have the calm mind, nothing works. It just escalates. And there's this, you know, Culture Jam is someone who's spirited and spiritual and bold. And like Thoreau said, his one regret was his good behavior. And so I think one of my favorite Henry David Thoreau quotes. And anyone heard about the pencil if you hold a pencil in your teeth? Anyone heard that thing? Hold a pencil in your teeth, right? And it forces you to smile. And then if you hold a pencil between your lip and your nose, try to do it. And just pretend there's a pencil there. Try to hold it from falling out. Yeah, you feel like, grr. So they say if you hold a pencil in your teeth like so many minutes a day, your health improves. It's just you like forced a smile onto your face. So they say fake it till you make it. Like I heard that, I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh, I think he said that. Like, just smile. Like even if you're like feeling depressed and anxious, you just smile. And just see what it does to you. Yeah. So that's like fake it till you make it. And I think we need to make it together. You know, I think we really need to make it together. And I'm in Maine now, and Maine is full of like crazy, rugged individualists. Like everyone in Maine has like the dream of like building their own house with their own hands and their own sawmill. And I'm like so much like that. I'm almost finished building a house from a sawmill that I bought. And you know, it's just like we're helpless. You know, some of us New Englanders, because. Like a friend of mine from Vermont, he taught at Sterling College. He would take his college students over to Scandinavia and do a Scandinavian sustainability semester. And he said there, like, what's the difference? He's like, well, the kids in first grade are learning all the games are how to do it together. There's no winner or loser. Everything's cooperative. And then it goes all the way through. So when you're 18 and you're getting ready to go to college, you want to think of getting skills. And as you're in college, you're meeting all the networks and friends, and you're all talking about how you're going to do something together. You're not going to get your own like little business and make it a big name for yourself, like myself. I'm going to become the best this or that, you know. So we're part of a society that isn't good at doing it together. Like we try to form a community, usually there's like a lot of politics and a lot of people like struggling to talk together and do it, you know. And I feel like there's a goal for me is like that I've tried to do is like to come unconscious of my sustainability. And like in the beginning when you first start, you're unconscious that you're unsustainable. And it's like, I was that way and it was like happy as hell, you know, like who cares about, I'm just having fun. It's just me. It's like 20s, ego. It's just like whatever is good for me is fun. And then you become conscious that you're unsustainable. And the more you learn, it's like, oh my God, I am so unsustainable. Like 99% of what I do could not be sustained by 7 billion people. And so then it's like, okay, consciously, I'm going to consciously become sustainable, but then you forget your bags. You want to have your coffee mug wherever you go, but you forgot your coffee mug. So I started, like, if I forgot my bags, I won't go eating to the co-op. If I have all my washed out bags, so like, I forgot them today, I'll shop tomorrow. I'd rather be without a coffee than take a coffee cup. I've even taken paper cups out of the garbage and gone in and washed them. I'm just like not going to put kill another tree to have a cup for me to use for 30 minutes to throw away. It can't kill a tree to do that anymore, So finally you become unconsciously sustainable. You just can't live unsustainably anymore, and there's no work in it. It's just easy and fun and just what you do, and it's great, So I think that's the goal anyway. I'll share some slides tonight about Cuba. I went there like 4 years ago, and also Kerala, India, which some of you may have seen. But for me, it was some really important lessons on how to be sustainable in the future, and it's small families, low consumption, and high quality of life. And if we compare different societies, I visited 2 of these places, Kerala, India, and Cuba. I actually visited Spain as well, but not Afghanistan. But if you compare the data, like on infant mortality rate, total fertility rate, and life expectancy, Cuba blew my mind to be there. They're ranked 2nd in the world in literacy. U.S. is at 35th.
Oh, wow.
My dad thought we should have attacked Castro. He had 400 attempts to kill him from the U.S., and they never succeeded. But he delivered after 50 years a life expectancy longer than an American, barely. Smaller families, a lower rate of infant mortality, and they do it. Like I put their income in purchasing power parity, it says 9,000, but it's really exaggerated. It's more like about $1,000. They have like almost nothing there because they've been embargoed by the U.S. so severely. Kerala has more like $400 a year GDP, but I put it in what they call purchasing power parity, which says how much can you buy on the street with $1, but it exaggerates. It makes all the rich people look poor, and makes all the poor people look richer by like a lot. So I use the number just because that's what they have on the data sheets now. They used to have the Atlas method and the purchasing power parity. Now they took it off. And it took like 2 billion people out of poverty with the change of how they do the numbers. But the people they do, like Kerala, they only have like $300 or $400 American, but it looks like they're richer because they're so creative with how they use their money. It's not that they have more money. We dock them for being creative. But anyway, if you compare it to the U.S. doesn't look that good. But if you compare it to Afghanistan, they average life expectancy 44. They're having 152 children, are dying out of 1,000 born and 6 children per family. And they're the poorest country on planet Earth, the lowest footprint. And it's like what we did to Vietnam. We killed 3 million of their people, spraying toxic chemicals over the whole landscape, and engaging in this vicious war against them, unrelenting bombing, and horrible, the most horrible thing you can imagine we did. Now that we've just finished like one of America's longest wars in Afghanistan, it's not over. And it's brutal, and they absolutely did nothing to us. Like, there's nothing they had done to us. Zero. They had done zero to us, And they were mostly Saudis, and it's just been lies. So the more you understand that, you think we're alive at a crazy time. And if you just look at our population and our affluence, there are 2 curves that multiply, and we're on this intensely steep curve like no other generation has been alive at the time when human is completely dominating planet Earth and making it into a mess. Like overutilizing everything, affecting every life form, every planetary process. Right now, just the humans alone exceed in the planet's carrying capacity by 50%, overshoot. One species uses everything the Earth produces and 50% more. So in 8 months, we've used what it takes the Earth a whole year to generate. So this is like excessive overshoot. And that's why we're seeing the problems like so horrible around the planet. The people who study it at the Stockholm Resilience Center identify 9 planetary boundaries that we need to respect if we want to have a livable, functioning planet. You see the red, the green is the safe operating zone, and the red is the areas that we're completely exceeding, and that's climate, biodiversity loss, and nitrogen or phosphorus loading of the rivers and streams, mostly from agriculture and agribusiness, and then ocean acidification is very high. People have seen all this, I'm sure, all the climate information. It's like, now it's like 4 million years is the last time the Earth has seen these kind of concentrations of CO2. This is the marching of our state of Vermont as it's heading south. And it looks like by 2070, you can see where they're predicting it to go, but it's already gone quite a ways. It's marched down quite a bit in the last 10 years. We've shifted a whole agricultural growing zone in 10 years. And this is showing the composition of the forest changing over the next 2100 to 2100 prediction for like different scenarios. The rate of species extinction is 1,000 times the natural rate. E.O. Wilson has said now we're in the midst of the 6th great extinction brought on by humanity. This is what I call radical disparity, is the gap between the wealthy billion and the poorest is 250 to 1. Huge inequity. The people killed in Iraq, 700,000 deaths at the end of 2006. My numbers now tally up to close to 2 million Iraqis were killed, and they had done absolutely nothing to us, really. They had no ties to Al-Qaeda, they had no nuclear program, and they had no weapons of mass destruction. The picture of Saddam Hussein when they found him, he's in a dirt hole by himself in a field. I thought he'd be in a high-tech bunker with 200,000 elite forces, because they told us that he had the strongest, 5th strongest army in the world. Completely lying to us. Killed 250,000 of their young men who were retreating, and we buried them along the highway. We mass murdered 250,000 of their soldiers. And we killed, 17 Americans were killed in that operation. 17 to 250,000. And then we just kept going, and kept going, and kept going, and kept going. And it's insanity. You know, when you look at the world, like I used to be in this world, so I know the military budgets. The green is the U.S. military budget compared to the rest of NATO combined is the purple. So right now we spend almost as much as the entire world together on military. And people call it the Anthropocene now. It's a new epoch where human is absolutely dominating planet Earth. And, you know, 1854, Thoreau had to say it 3 times, like a very poetic man. He actually had to say the word 3 times, because he saw his countrymen would carry a 60-acre farm on their back. He would say you could see their face when they came into the village, that they were stressed. This is 1850s, because they're carrying too much. He said you need but a peck of land if you'd be a vegetarian. He'd say his neighbor tells him you can't have strong bones by eating only vegetable. But then he says, and all day long he walks behind the oxen. Thoreau is very funny. Oxen, of course, was a vegetarian, pulling his plow through impossible obstacles. So, but even our best and brightest have no better plan today than to stimulate you to be a consumer. They want to do everything they can to get you to spend, because if you don't spend, none of their things work. Everything they're doing will not work if we don't give them their money. And they know that. And so when the crash happened back 5 or 6 years ago, these brilliant people were on TV, like Main Street people saying, I'm not driving my car to the corner store anymore. We actually had to get rid of a car, and neither of us are working right now, but actually our life is actually improving a bit, and we're starting to realize like we're not consuming anymore. And people all across the country weren't consuming. And it was like exciting because they were really like getting in touch with it, you know, but they tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. And the nation for a while was paralyzed in getting us to do something stupid. Like the most stupid thing you could do is have a stimulation program when you're in debt, as a nation or as a person. Like say you're like really out of money. So I'm going to go and spend a lot of money hoping that someday I'll, you know, for some reason it's going to get you like better off. If you spend a lot of money, the economy will grow and then everyone will do better. But you're spending all these things that you don't need to spend, just to spend them. What if you gave it to the poor and helped the poor who really needed it right now, instead of just spending all this useless money? But the reason why it doesn't work, this stimulation, is that the planet's finite, we're already in overshoot, and we can do so much better than just trying to stimulate consumerism. And so, you know, most of you, I don't know, my friend's very disappointed with Obama's agenda. Like, he likes every kind of energy. Like, I've been involved with fighting offshore oil drilling for 25 years, against nuclear power. All these things that he's just warming right up to. You know, offshore drilling, then he had the big thing in the Gulf, like just the hugest leak. You know, then nuclear, then we have Fukushima. You know, like these things have improved, like activists have worked so hard to stop these things, and then he's giving them green lights and green lights and green lights. And then, oh yeah, we're gonna do energy efficiency too. He's throwing bones to like the most crazy things. And so it's sad because, you know, we really trusted and hoped that something would happen. But to me, it just more and more solidifies like the reason, like these are not the way to go. But we all know how to make it work. And if you think, who's gonna lead? You know, businesses probably on their own won't do it. Governments on their own probably won't do it. Individuals, people change. They have the capacity and they can change tomorrow if they really decide to. Communities, culture can change. They can decide, like, let's do something different. Like higher education, when I was at Dartmouth for a few years, like, aside from a few people, like almost everyone I talked to was Inuit. Almost every professor there, almost every administrator, like the like the CEO of Dartmouth for a while, Adam, right? Sitting in a meeting, he says, look, our literature program we don't have a literature program to make money. We don't have a sustainability program to make money. It's the right thing to do. Like, I heard this guy in front of everyone saying this. I'm like, we can do, almost every campus across the whole country has a sustainability coordinator. Like hundreds and hundreds of campuses have decided to become carbon neutral. I was at the meeting when they decided, like, let's start this thing, get college presidents to sign on. And it was so exciting because it happened, like, whole campus, like, okay, if Cornell was not gonna sign, the president, no, I can't sign that, too crazy. 5,000 students. And they did more than sign a thing, like they worked him over. And when you saw his statement, read like Henry David Thoreau. Beautiful, poetic, he had a good speechwriter, and he issued, it was, you know, people changed. Like Yale, the president of Yale, Levin, he was lobbying all the other Ivy League colleges to come on board. Jim Wright, ex-Marine football player, he built like a lot of stadiums at Dartmouth. No, but who's the new president at Dartmouth? Who was before him?
Kim.
Yeah, he didn't last long, huh? Too bad. I was there the year they had the first year reading for all the students there was like Mountains Beyond Mountains about Dr. Paul Farmer and all the great programs of helping the poorest of the poor. And then I watched the medical center see and learn, and all the students read it. All these medical students, if you say, Dartmouth student, you want to become a doctor and make a lot of money, have like 2 or 3 houses, maybe have a boat, they're all going to sit there and say, oh yeah, sure. Then you say, well, what if you tried a different path? How would this be if, like, you went and worked in Haiti where people make like $100 a year and they're like living to be 45 years old and their kids are so sick and they don't even have enough nutrition to last a day and they so much need help. You could do that. And you show them both examples. The Dartmouth student will say, I want to help the poorest of the poor. But they need to be shown both things because they won't come to it on their own. So when they showed them both, and the farmer was there, he came to Dartmouth, I was there when he came, these students got on fire for that. And then the guy who was helping Farmer, he was like his financier and his organizer from behind the scenes of this crazy guy who had a lot of ideas. He became the next president at Dartmouth there for James Wright. So I was like, I can't believe this happened. So I think there's some room for us to really lead. But as we lead, then these other two will follow, the first two. They won't be leaders, I don't think, but there are leaders in business, and in Ray Anderson passed away, but you know, the president of Interface Carpets said, he told me once I met him, he says, I'm gonna have 0 footprint as a factory, 5 factories, you know, to make industrial carpeting. I said, Ray, I wrote a book on this, you can't have 0 footprint, a deer has a footprint. He came really close to me, he says, Jim, we're gonna do it. And he put his arm around me and I could smell his breath. And he felt a little like a snake oil salesman to me, you know? I didn't sure I could trust him. But then Dartmouth's carbon footprint went up 56% since the data I was collecting there, you know, and his went down 56% in the same time period. His garbage went to like lower than a third, like 80% reduction. he was committing himself to zero effluent, recycling all the chemistry, so no chemistry leaves there, no effluent. And he was making it happen, and he got religion around it. Like, the guy was amazing. Passed away recently, but Lester Brown is another hero of mine. He was just on public radio the other day with David Barsamian, and great talk if you get to hear it. He calculates 190 billion would end world poverty, guarantee you universal health care, all these things, right? That's like 1/20th of, 20% of the US military budget would do this. We could so easily do this. Like, there's not a single reason for there to be climate change right now, or we have the money to do all these things, to eradicate poverty tomorrow. And so there's a sustainability bubble, and to me it's exciting, because when we get in the bubble, it's really great, because it's not a downside. Like most of the bubbles, like, high-tech bubble, we're all going to get richer, and then it crashes. And then there's a real estate bubble, and we're all going to get rich off of real estate, then that crashes. And then, these are all fabricated things that are not going to do it. But when you get in something wholesome and real, I think it's worth staying in that bubble of sustainability and working it out, doing the hard work, making it happen, practicing at home, and practice with more people and more people and more people, and try and experiment. And the more we try, like if I'd see a politician who you go to them, and I used to work in politics, and you try to say, hey, let's fund the bus. Never took the bus, Okay, come with me in the morning, we're going to get to work on the bus from your home. And then he tries to take the bus, and it doesn't work. You got to feel that, doesn't work. So let's make it work. And then he or she might get religion. So they have to understand how, that they have to try it. If they don't try it, they won't get it. And for me, the exciting part about all this is like all the big factors, like our affluence. These are the three biggest factors: the population, technology. We all have full control. Like our affluence, like no one can force you to earn more money. No one can force you to spend more money. No one can force you to have more children. Like Carol knows. Say if there was 20 women dancing around me, and they all want to procreate with me. I'm not saying it's ever happened, it's hypothetical. But if you have it, I can say no, right? I'm in full control of my fertility. And then I'm in full control of my technology. Like, no one can force me into a gas guzzler. No one can force me to live in a house bigger than I need, or to not insulate. Like, no one's going to force me to not insulate my house, or whatever. So we have full control over the three biggest factors that determine our impact. And but experimenting, I think, is fun, because you can't lose when you experiment. You just try and try and try and see how it goes, and it can, be a fun thing. And I took this out of Your Money or Your Life, and I spent a few years when I first quit, because I had a plan to live simple, but I didn't have it really solidified. We're going to talk about this for those who come to the workshop tomorrow. It's a whole day long workshop, and if you aren't signed up yet, please sign up, but we'll go into more detail. But one of the tools that I used in the very beginning was this book, and I spent a lot of time, with the authors, and they helped me get stabilized. So what I was doing was I had been increasing earnings over the year. So my earnings were going up, but if your spending line is also going up as you're getting wealthier, you're just going to a higher lifestyle. But what I started really doing was spending less over time through being creative and all that. So then my savings begin to grow, and then my interest income from my savings was growing. At 30 years old, I did the math, and I realized I was there at 30, from my engineering job, from getting my spending low enough and having my earnings be at a certain rate for a long enough period. I redid the numbers, and I realized I could have quit at 27. Bummer. I didn't really even have to work all the way to 30. And it just meant living at the average of the world's people's GDP. Then I could live. But if I chose a number of 10 grand, I would have had to work another 10 years roughly at the time. That's how much longer I'd have to work. But to me, my work at the time was I couldn't live with myself. I did it again. And then I knew we needed peace, and I knew we needed wilderness, and I knew we needed protection of the planet. And I couldn't spend one more minute not doing those things that I knew the Earth needed so badly. So that's what made it to me the easiest. over the last, people say, oh, what did you miss most? What was the hardest? Like, nothing was hard. Because I knew how ugly the military complex is. What's hard is to work at a job you don't like. That's hard. Do something day in, day out that you don't believe in. That's hard. And so, to me, it was very easy and simple in some way. I don't want to be disrespectful, because now I feel, you know, I'm getting, as I get older, I realize how hard it is and more determined to, you know, be light and flexible, but also still true, integral. But to get us to the sustainability thing, it's just like, how much earth is there? How many people? Very simple math. We each get like 4.5 acres, but that doesn't include the needs of all the species. Some people have been through this with me before, but I keep putting it in because I'm addicted to this stuff. Because I had this goal inside that I wanted a world with 80% wild. With 80% wild of the planet, I felt like we'd have a sustainable scene. But then I'd have to go from what exists is 4.5 acres per person. That's just simple math. The Earth's green area divided by the world's 7 billion. But if you're going to leave 80% of that for the other 25 million species, you've got to live on 1 acre. That's like living below an Afghan today. And that's just the idea. We just have built the... If we stop when, like, we, you know, in the 70s or the 60s and all the hippies were trying to get us to do it, it wouldn't be like 1 acre right now. We'd have like 4 or 5 acres, because we wouldn't have grown so many people. But we didn't take heed. So, no, water under the bridge. So what do you do now? So if we are to have, say, I did the math for all this when I didn't know what to do anymore, and it's like 2-child families on average, we're going to grow to 9 billion. Then instead of 1 acre to have 80% wild, you have to live on a 0.7 acre footprint. This is like impossible. I tried it. I've been trying to live on 1 acre since like 96. Like monitoring my footprint with the, you know, ecological footprinting, doing it and trying it. I can get to 2 or 3, but it's really hard to get below 2 for me. Really hard. You know, 3 is pretty easy. I can do it. Below 6 is pretty, like, that's skookum. It's not hard, you know, at all. But if you have 3-child families, you know, we got to plan to have 30 billion people if that's the average. And this is like, you can't. This is like burlap bag scenario. But if we were to have 1-child families for the next 100 years, we could each have 6 acres footprint. And that's like really easy to live. Like it's the world average, currently the world average. So we wouldn't have to lower the average, distribute better. And so it's so easy how to have sustainability that works for all. No losers in the equation. It's just single-child families for the next 100 years, 6-acre footprints, democratically distributed. 100 years from now, 80% of the planet will be wild. Every bone on my body can work for that. Like, there's no, like, oh, we're just keeping the patient on life support. The planet would be like, it would recover the best it could. You know, not everything will recover like it was, but it would really recover. You know, we didn't have eagles, you know, when Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, they were going quick. This is the countries that are having small families. So people say, oh, who's going to have small families? Well, look at Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, all of Eastern Europe, all of Europe. You know, almost all the countries, Canada, Cuba, Thailand, China. So there's a lot of people already doing it. They're not, I don't think they're doing it consciously like, oh, we better do this for the planet. But women became more educated. Their country is a little like hard to find an apartment because they're dense, and that's just not, we have a different reason to be alive than just make more and more babies. You know, they became, my mom had 9 kids, so she read my book and she gave it away to more people than anyone. And when I go home to Mom, I don't say, Mom, why'd you have 9 kids? She say, which one of your brothers and sisters you wish wasn't born? So like, if anyone's in a room have 4 or 5 kids, please don't, I can beg you not to feel like, oh, I screwed up. You can't screw up. Because every life you brought in is just a beautiful child, and now loving them and honoring them and making the world the best you can make for them is all we can do. But then if you haven't had children yet, it's maybe something to think about. Or if you want to work on something in the world, how can we work on getting birth control accessible to people in poor countries? You know, and how do we eradicate poverty? This is what you have to do. It's so simple. Eradicate the poverty. Get rid of poverty. And the way to do it is like empower, get women to be freely engaged in the society, help them support their indigenous practices, you know, and support, like, not interfering with them with the Western colonial powers. They're recovering from colonialism and they need support, and not like McDonald's airdropped on them. But there's all the dark blue is the small families. So it's a problem that actually is solved. The studies show that if people are coming out of poverty, they automatically have smaller families. And I've spent time in Kerala as a researcher, living with the family. These are the girls. There's 104 girls to 100 boys in Kerala. That's the more normal ratio. In India as a whole, it's like 92 girls to 100 boys. Most of these poor countries, it's 89 to 90 girls. The missing girls are called fatal daughter syndrome, which is systematic deprivation of resources to girls in a dog-eat-dog patriarchal world now, which used to be matriarchal before the colonization. Women were the kingpins of agriculture. You talk to Vandana Shiva, who a leading world biogeneticist who also understands their indigenous practices of India. And the role of women was amazing in all these countries, but it's been diminished. But Kerala is a matriarchal society. When they kicked the British out, they went back to the matriarch. They have small families. It's less than 1.7 child families. It's abundant food. They're communists, many times elected in and out, 25 political parties. You can have friends who are capitalist communists. You know, I asked these young men who I hung out with, why do you think Kerala how did they do so better than India? He says, we have the cooperative mind. They spend 60% of their spending on healthcare and education, more libraries than all of India. This is an open prison, 280 murderers, and the guards carry no weapons. And the day I was there, I spent all day there, and I said, I had an interpreter, the guy in the khaki was one of the guards. He's no weapon, you see. I says, well, what's the philosophy of the treatment of these prisoners? He said, we better treat them nice, they're all murderers. And then in like 30 years there, they only have one escapee, one repeat offender.
Wow.
And then here I went and spent time with the tribal people in the Western Ghats. These two are still hunting and gathering, Apicharakan and Chandran brothers. And I just hung out with them and learned as much as I could while I was in India. And I did get to see the face of poverty as well. And just as an example, like the Troubled Asset Relief Program, that could double the world's poorest income for 7 years. Double the world's poorest income for 7 years. Just this one bailout that you Americans decide in 7 days to give to the wealthiest. But so we can spend it differently. And this is myself on the way to the Himalayas. I met a Frenchman, not myself, but a Frenchman I met in a cafe, and him and I went with another, an Indian man who's a mountaineer, into the mountains to see and learn from the people of the Himalayas. And it was about 7 days crossing the pass to Kargia. And the first village we came, I met Angdu and Jingba, father, son, who were shepherds, and I asked them, how do you say thank you? And I was learning the Ladakhi language, and he says, Zachi's Olasong, a young boy, knew a few English words, so I would write that down. And I would say that to everyone I passed who did something nice. And then when I got to the capital city, I said it at a restaurant at Padum, which was still snowed in May. And he says, do you know what you said? I said, yeah. I said, thank you. He said, no, you said eat food and run. So I walked with this young boy for several hours through the Himalayas, and you come on a village and all the stones are engraved with the Buddhist mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. They pass these piles, like 6 of them, before they enter the village in the churtans. And they spin their wheel and they count their 108 beads as they walk by the pile, always on one side as they enter, the other side as they leave. And my visualization was that they only bring peace to the world when they leave. And when they come back to the village, they bring peace into their village. And it was very peaceful there and beautiful, and people would greet you with a big Julay, and I got to see fossil fuel free life in live and living color. I saw the village from a precipice, and it's 7-day, 8-day walk into here, and there's no burrows, there's no planes, no flight strip, and no roads, nothing. You just got to get in there with your backpack or a burro, and I just see burros bringing supplies. We're growing it here. Barley, sampa, grinding it in the water wheels, and a beautiful, sustainable life. And so when I saw that, I said, I got what I needed on this trip. And I was going to go and travel the islands of Borneo and all that, and I said, I'm going home. I got my marching instructions to start the Global Living Project and try to do it in America. I saw it. I said, we can do it here. Live in a light way that's beautiful and light and could be sustained by all the people. But I needed science from recovering engineers, so we quantified everything we used, and we learned how to like reduce our footprint, like through bikes and car sharing and conserving. Like just for example, if you put 2 people in the car, you have it. If you travel half as much, you're a quarter. If you get a car with 2 times the MPG, you're to 1/8, and you're still using a car. And you put 4 in a car. Like in India, the vehicle never moved till it was full. Like the bus, you say like, when does the bus leave? No one could answer you the question. You know, they didn't know what you were asking really. They didn't know when. They couldn't tell you. But you watch, and the bus is full. Then you see people climbing a ladder, getting up on the top. Then you see like 8 people across the back bumper. And then finally the bus driver starts moving. Like that's when the bus moves, when it's full. So if we do that with our own life, we can have a fraction of, like we want to get to factor 24, you know, American is 20, we want to get to 1 acre. You could do it with, and still have a car, just by using it sparingly, or get crazier. You can get a small footprint in your housing. Like the second biggest impact item for a person is their square footage of their housing and the resources it takes to build it. This is just a crazy example. In Canada, we built this house at a straw bale for $1,500 that had a 25 factor reduced footprint. And the utilities is the third biggest item, but this had an 18-inch thick wall, so it was super insulated. My friend Carol has helped me engineer a new house. Now in Maine it has a foot thick wall. And it's really nice. You don't have a wood fire in here for 4 or 5 days, you come in and it's still nice. When I moved into the Waterman homestead, we had a few solar panels and put a hot water solar. We had a solar cooker, all these things. It was just inspiring to play with them. This thing would perk your coffee in 6 minutes. Unbelievable how well that works. And then vegan, like the fourth biggest item is your diet. So just like being a vegan is like factor 20, 25 over being a meat eater. And my mom, you know, even in her 80s, she would grow too many vegetables and have to give them away to the neighbors. So people who grow food realize, like with the root cellar, and you can be very self-sufficient very easily. And I'm just going to finish up by sharing some images of Cuba. And this is 50 years after their anniversary, life after fossil fuels. And any people speak Spanish in here?
Okay.
Who can translate this?
Wow.
Before the crisis of the capitalist world.
Before the crisis of the capitalist world, yeah. So they're really like arch anti-capitalist, so you know why we hated them so much. But they still are running it. It's true, you know, if you heard the stories, they're still running these old cars, and you see the cars are not like half full. And, you know, you see a lot of this, and, you know, I could glorify it because I just was glorifying it, but I was watching this guy and thought, like, could I visualize myself in his shoes sitting there, like, waiting for someone to get a bike ride? And I wasn't sure, you know. But anyway, it was just like my own thinking. But you're on the streets and people are walking. You don't see cars. They don't have cars on the streets that much. But you see a vibrant art community, and this is a performance I just came upon. It's great to go to the clubs, like, you know, and it's fun, dancing, playful people. I got a bicycle and went into the countryside. I spent 4 or 5 days in Havana walking the streets and rented a bike and just started riding through the countryside. And I saw this, in 10 minutes I see this stand. I'm like, man, that looks nice. And there's the farmers. And my dad, he said, oh, Castro took all the land away. The people are miserable. They're all cooperatives. First question, cooperativo or privado? Is it private? You own your land, or is it a cooperative? Oh, privado. Oh, do you like that? Oh, yeah, it's good. And do you enjoy farming? You know, and I grow my own food for like 10 or 15 years now. It's 15, 20 maybe. So I talked to them about their growing and what they're doing, and they were just loving their life being farmers. And I get back on the bike, and I see the rice growing. I'm excited, and I see these guys with scythes in their hand, and they're harvesting the rice. So I get off my bike, go down, and he gets a bottle of rum out of the bushes and brings me over a glass of rum, hands it to me, and we just start talking farming, agriculture, and life. And And I say, are you collectivo or privado? He's like, I'm just trying to like be a nuisance to their life, you know, and like find out after I talk, warm them up to find out if everything I was lied to my whole life. Like, I had to, as a kid, like hide under the desk because the commies were going to kill us, you know, they were going to bomb us. I was propagandized. When I had my clearance, I remember the socialists had a booth in a town in California, and I said, what are those commies doing in my town? I walked by the socialist booth, that's what I said in 1986. Because I had been so propagandized against communism, and here I see communists. And these guys are saying, oh, we're collectivo. I said, do you like it? Oh yeah, the guys who are privado, they work so hard and they're lonely and they don't have their friends to work with them. You know, so, and then I see the sign like, Viva Fidel y Raul, you know, and I'm like, oh, I gotta stop here. And I see this woman and I start talking to her. Just asking her questions, fishing for answers, you know. And she says, oh, we have free healthcare, free dental, and free education. Like everyone. Who saw Michael Moore's movie, Sicko? He brings the sickest Americans over there. And he finds these guys playing dominoes in the street. And it's really, like, if you go there, that's what they do, you know. He's like, where can we find a doctor? And they say, oh, over there. And he goes up there, and all these sick people, and it's like, well, we're not Cubans. Oh, it doesn't matter. No form to fill out. Just tell me what's wrong. Really great. So that's why they say Viva la Revolution. Like, they're not trying to swim to America. There's a few Cuban Americans, you know, who hate Cuba because they were the ones who had to give up something and didn't want to. If you read, you know, Che Guevara and Castro's stuff, like they really wanted a revolution. They knew if they let these guys come back in with their same schemes over and over again, they're gonna lose it, you know. And like, look at Haiti. Haiti went, you know, like, and they are living 45-year-old now, you know. Desperate poverty, and he just knew that's not what we're going to do. This guy still got his communist hat on. It was like, he was so fiery, man. He was just giving me grief. I wish I spoke Spanish better. Here's his daughter raking the rice, like it was rice harvest time. It was a beautiful time to be there. Anyone have an idea of food security? Like, what does that mean, food security? Look at those sacks of rice and beans and corn that they grew. And I say, por familia, por vende. Is this for sale or for your family? For our family. They have like little pigs running around. So like, you know, I remember D Acres, we had the pig roast, you got a big pig, you know. It's a big project. But they got, you see little pigs heading to for their life, you know, it's like in a little cart in the back, it's a little pig, you know, it's like a 20-pounder or something. But they're running around and the chickens are running around, so that's they don't have refrigeration. So you take a little pig and you eat it up in the next 3 or 4 days. Then you take another little pig, you know. So they have a different way of living. Almost all their big staples, they don't need refrigeration. Corn, rice, beans, the Three Sisters, you know, squash will store without refrigeration. So they are really wired, like, and they do all their agriculture without chemicals. Agroponico, they call it. These girls have a better chance than an American girl of like infant mortality rate, you know, like. I just had to take my hand off and feel this again, Viva la Revolution. And when I was in Spain on the streets, on the Ramblas in Barcelona, this guy was doing it. He was doing like a, I thought he was just like a mime, or, you know, he was miming Che. But when I got home, I found a picture of Che, and I said, that was Che, he's still here. The U.S. really didn't kill him. And I'm on my bike and I'm riding and I come up alongside, I grab onto the cart and just let him pull me along, and I start talking to him. And of course I'd ask these questions because I'm just a troublemaker. In the end question, por familia, por vende. Oh, this is for my family. I just wanted to get a sense of this agricultural revolution of Cuba and their food security. That's for his family. That's rich. They probably have 1.5 years, 2 years of food sitting there. And I'm watching these guys plow and do this, like, and I just stopped and I felt like poetry was happening. Like, they're in a meditative state, like dropping the seeds from their hand as they walk. When I was in the Himalaya, the women are walking the fields like this, and they just have this beautiful walk, and it's just like, it's just like so beautiful and meditative. And the whole family would be in the field, like the grandparents, the kids, everyone's in the field. And they're moving the water, It's coming down off the hill in a big aqueduct that they made by hand. Then they're wiggling it through the field. They have one little tool, and they're massaging the path of the water. And you see their sisters and the beans and the corn and the papaya, which you call bomba there. You don't call papaya because you get slapped. That's a female part. You know, amazing pineapple, coconut, the village. I saw these villages in the jungle and I'm like, whoa, this is like my dream. And then on the biking there is a paradise because there's no vehicles, hardly at all. Like way in the distance, one truck coming, and then I see this boy on a horse and he's trotting along, just beautiful smile, and I'm on my bike, and he darts up into the field, so I had to follow him. Get off the bike, throw it in the bushes, and I go up in the field. I want to just see him, talk to him, hear about his life, and here's his dad. Didn't greet me too suspiciously. Who's this gringo like walking up into the field? Like he's harvesting mattachini. This is like what you see in India. Like when I was in India, they harvest this staple root, you know, starchy root, very productive. And who do I look over the other side? There's his grandpa, 3 generations. And this is another question I asked over and over again. Where'd you grow up? Here. Where'd your grandparents grow up? Here. I was dispelling this lie my dad had been told. I heard it my whole life from a right-wing dad. And this is our land. We grew up here. We're still farming it, and we've been farming it for several generations. A guy's at the bus stop. He's a medical doctor. He's in his white coat. I stop, talk to him. Where do you do your doctoring? Oh, in this village. Where'd you grow up? In this village. Where'd you go to college? Oh, just right over there. We have a medical hospital teaching school right there. They export doctors around the world. And I didn't find this like story of mass relocation, people hating Castro, and like, oh, I was abused, and I just didn't hear it. Maybe it's there, I didn't hear it. And had to stop at this. I hung out here for like 2 hours, man. This guy was so cool. He's making charcoal. And he's showing me his end product. Like this is like what you do when you don't have, when the U.S. has been embargoing you for 20 years, you know, this is what you do. You patch your own shoes. This guy is patching shoes on the street. I saw this all over India. This woman is weaving a tail. And I go over and talk to the man, and I say, can I photograph you? He says, sure. And he starts working again. He shows me his handiwork. And just beautiful. And I look at the shoe store. I have more shoes in my house than this guy has in the shoe store. You go into a store and there's in a glass case is a valve to turn your water on and off. Like some bolts and nuts. Like not jewels and watches. That's like they have so little consumerism in the stores. Like their shelves are like empty, what you hear about in Russia. But they're not hungry because the revolution was like that everyone would be fed. And everyone lost 20 pounds. And they did it, went through it, and now they got their agriculture so well oiled that they're feeding themselves. And it's really amazing. And the data tells the story, you know. So yes, we can take back proxies, like the poet Wendell Berry says, take back the proxies that we give, like a corporation will feed me, house me, educate me, fix me when I'm broken. He says, take back the proxies. But can we meet some of our needs without corporations and oil? How will we get around? Who will feed us? Who will be my friends? How will we stay warm? Where will the sweetness for life come from? In 1939, Gandhi concluded you cannot build nonviolence on a factory civilization, but it can be built on self-contained villages. And I think that's where our response to this idea of collapse comes from. A very old, ancient idea from Gandhi is self-contained villages. Thank you very much.